In this Pulitzer Prize-winning historic novel, the author writes about the turning point of the year 1914, the first month of World War I. This was the last gasp of the Gilded Age, of kings and czars, of pointed or plumed hats, colored uniforms, and all the pomp and romance that went along with war. How quickly it changed and how horrible it became. This is The Guns of August by Barbara Tuchman. The author's thesis is, due to their quest for power, European leaders caused blunders and personal feuds that led up to World War I, which defined the downfall of the European nobility, led to the disruption of European economies, killed millions of people, and set the stage for World War II. The intended audience of this work is any historian working on World War I. This book could help the historian because this book described the mechanics of the First World War. The Guns of August is not only made up of facts, it's also made up of drama and action, which interests not only historians, but also the general public. Tuchman's engaging and humorous yet painstakingly detailed writing style easily captured any reader's attention, which made me believe that this book is also written for the general public, so that they may learn that there is more to World War I that meets the eye. The author uses deductive reasoning. Although her novel is mostly narrative, her story is logical and coherent because of the factual premises and documentation that she used. The theory put forth by the book is that due to their quest for power, European leaders caused blunders and personal feuds that led up to World War I. The work is arranged descriptively rather than analytically, like a story. Using the factual evidence she gathered for her book and her creative imagination, Mrs. Tuchman successfully painted a living picture of the events and individuals of August 1914 of World War I. This book focused on showing the beginning of World War I as a war of movement, instead of the stalemate that followed. It also focused on the European leaders' quest for power and the movement of the armies. I knew this was the emphasis of the work because a vast amount of details were provided to prove the actions of the European leaders and the movement of their armies. Tuchman used a myriad of facts from primary and secondary sources to create a captivating story that melded the facts she had gathered, the roles of individuals, and the motivations of said individuals that compelled them to make the actions that led to the war. Rather than imposing her own loose interpretations on what the participants were thinking, she recommended letting the facts lead the way, said Robert K. Massey in the foreword of the book. Tuchman remarked, "The very process of transforming a collection of personalities, dates, gun calibers, letters, and speeches into a narrative eventually forces the why to the surface. The SFI used in the book create a sense of reality in a fictional-like historical novel to successfully portray the thesis." The work is internally valid because of the dramatic, comprehensive, and painstakingly detailed account of the beginnings of World War I, provided by Barbara Tuchman. Her book displayed great organization skills, limitless research, and passages of magnificence. The author successfully proves her thesis through a smooth flow of prose and scholarship. The Guns of August showed over 70 pages of notes and sources at the end of the book, showing evidence of the amount of work and research she put to prove her thesis. This book only covers the first month of World War I. The work itself does not leave any questions unanswered other than what happened after the first month of the war. Her thesis did not concern anything after the first month of World War I, which is why she only documented the first month. She just wanted to show the movement rather than a stalemate and the carnage inside the trenches. I strongly recommend anyone interested in World War I to read The First World War by John Keegan and The First World War: A Complete History by Martin Gilbert to know the story of World War I. There are many quotes in The Guns of August that one may consider as magnificent and powerful. One of them is, Human beings, like plants, prove fallible in the presence of those ingredients that are missing in maneuvers: danger, death, and live ammunition. Another significant one is, nothing so comforts the military mind as the maxim of a great but dead general. One quote that proves the thesis is, one constant among the elements of 1914, as of any era, was the disposition of everyone on all sides not to prepare for the harder alternative, but to act upon what they suspected to be true. These quotes show the creativity and the impact of Tuchman's influence in the interpretation of World War I. Mrs. Tuchman showed a distinct anti-German bias that influenced the interpretation of the actions taken by Germany in the beginning of World War I. The bias is understandable due to the fact that this book was written during a period where Germans were hated for their actions. Other than that, Mrs. Tuchman supported her bias with countless details, research, and imagination. This minor complaint does not mean anything compared to the novel as a whole. The Guns of August features 14 pages of sources that Mrs. Tuchman used for writing this book. These pages show how in-depth Mrs. Tuchman analyzed World War I to expand her knowledge on the war and to write the book. She used countless primary sources and secondary sources. She included books that came from Belgium, England, France, Turkey, and Germany. She also used government documents and letters. She also included maps of the battles and photographs of European countries' important individuals. Most of the works used ranged from the period 1900 to 1930. I would consider most of the resources included in her work's bibliography as reliable, due to the fact that of those 14 pages, 13 pages were used to list only the primary resources she used. I would include this work on my bookshelf if I ever needed to research World War I, due to the book's successful ability to provide in-depth details of the war's origins and the movement and action of the armies. This book is for anyone who loves to read or know anything about World War I and modern European history. Actually, anyone who wants to see powerful military leaders make blunders and the drama behind the feud should read The Guns of August. The detailed facts and interesting narrative will educate and entertain the reader. I'd also recommend reading the book All Quiet on the Western Front by Marie Remarque, since it provides in-depth detail of World War I. In websites such as Amazon and Barnes & Noble, many of the customers have praised Barbara Tuchman's ability to transform the factual and dense information of the first month of World War I into a fantastic narrative filled with characters that spring to life right before your eyes. Newsweek remarked, "A brilliant piece of military history, which proves up to the hilt the force of Winston Churchill's statement that the first month of World War I was a drama never surpassed. A writer with an impeccable sense of telling detail, Mrs. Tuchman is able to evoke both the enormous pattern of the tragedy and the minutiae which make it human." The Wall Street Journal commented, "Excellent, The Guns of August has a vitality that transcends its narrative virtues." This concludes the critical review of The Guns of August by Barbara Tuchman.